Well, let me hear you say mountain, mountain, mountain.
By what you're saying.
Yes, I give thanks to life as usual, you know?
Serious thing. We are here again, Ballhead and the Dread, and we're truly appreciative of everyone tuned in from those times to now. Fire, what we're reasoning about today?
Well, today we are reasoning about enabling wrongs. I really want to make everyone know that enabling wrongs is not equivalent to love, because oftentimes we see people have them family member, them friends, or anyone after start doing wrongs, and them start support the wrongs and really enable the wrongs, and them call that love. And we really want to demystify the whole concept.
And I want to be clear. I'm pretty sure you saw this growing up, right? Enabling has always been there, but now enabling seems to be the norm. And I say that because we live in a culture now where it seems like you can't hurt anybody's feelings, right?
Yeah.
And because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, the real conversations that need to take place to keep things in order, to keep things healthy, to keep things progressive, are not being had. When people think about enabling, I think they default to like Lifetime and Discovery Channel, A&E, like some extreme case like drug abuse, or we were speaking earlier. You spoke about the it's not funny. The what's the thing? Hoarders.
Hoarding, yeah.
That type of energy, right? But enabling comes in many forms and many shapes, you know. And for many households, when things aren't acknowledged, it could be very destructive to the health, to the chemistry in the household, to the financial health of the household, and the spiritual health of the household, because that behavior that is allowed, that behavior that's been supported, that behavior that has not been checked becomes so toxic, like a cancer in a sense, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to check it now. Like you mentioned the hoarding thing, for example. I watched this series. I think it's A&E about the hoarding. And there's one of the episodes, the sister, she was telling everybody else in the family, say, to leave our sister alone, because if she want to hoard, let her hoard. Not realizing that this is to that grand scheme of things, it's a mental illness. And if you enable that type of behavior, it only makes you get worse, and you go only make our health start deteriorate, all of these things. So, but she was saying that she was doing that in the sense of love, because when you love somebody, you must give them the room to be themselves. But to what extent do you give them the room to be themselves? You can't give them that room for deteriorate them own health and make things start go down the drain. So we have to be careful of all of that now, because you have this, like this outcast word now, when nobody can say, but me willing to say it still, because we always go above and beyond sensitivity. Because you can't say them word now. Yeah, because everybody's so sensitive now. You can't tell them, they can't decipher. Remember, if you see somebody, your family, I go down the drain and you don't say nothing, you 10 times worse, Right? You're supposed to can't tell your family that,
I wanted to say that the word love is used in the wrong context, because to truly love someone is to, not saying that your words will change their behavior. I want to be clear, but I feel it's your duty for a loved one to tell them they're doing wrong. Like if I see you doing wrong as a brethren that I love and see as a brother, right? I'm gonna tell you. I can't see you do wrong and not tell you you're doing wrong, because how do I really love you then? You get what I'm saying? And I think the love pushes you to have that uncomfortable conversation. I think love has been used wrongly, and it's a misguided love where I just want to support you with whatever you do, regardless of the wrongs and the folly. And I think that's where things are going astray. There's another thing I wanted to touch on with the whole enabling vibe, is that I'm trying to say this without sounding sexist, right? But I noticed that in many households, the man is the one that would initiate the uncomfortable conversations. Not in all, and this is my exposure. So if it sounds sexist, I do apologize. But in my exposure, it's been the men that initiate the uncomfortable conversation to acknowledge the wrong that's being done. And it's the women, in my exposure, I want to be clear again, right? I'm not saying all women, I'm saying in my exposure, that try to defend the behavior.
So my name canceling.
So when No, I think I put the disclaimer. I put the proper disclaimer. That's why I said I wanted to acknowledge in regards to in my small exposure. This is not a broad thing, so I just want to make it clear. This is what I've been exposed to. You know, whereas like it's been the male. Now in my family, I don't know. Like I grew up in an environment where people just like said what they had to say. I didn't grow up around this whisper up behind somebody's back, and no, everybody told you exactly what was on their mind. That's how I grew up in my household. I know that's not the norm for many households, you know. But I think that for me at least, I was in an environment where things were acknowledged, bro. You get what I'm saying? There wasn't nobody tiptoeing around the thing and thinking like, you know, this is wrong, and wasn't no one was supporting wrong behavior in the environment I grew in.
You know, they said that you said that, and something come to my brain. Yes, I think when most people enable wrongs when as it relates to them family member and classify it as love, it has something to do with trauma. So there's a connection to that and enabling wrongs and trauma, because essentially in their past, from a historical perspective, what they've seen is that anytime you speak out against a particular issue towards a family member or towards anybody, your friend or anybody within that type of toxic circle,
Facts.
It always leads to some form of
Confrontation,
conflict and confront, and that confrontation often become physical to a certain extent. So I think the trauma of lead to one of the reasons why people further enable wrongs too.
Very true, Fire. You remember a session we were reasoning with way back before we even put our faces on it, one psychologist lady?
Yeah.
I think she was touching on that, man, why kind of people don't want to speak up for certain things, you know? And they fall into that category where it is that history of vibe, you know?
Avoid a certain conflict.
Confrontation or the person getting in trouble.
Yeah.
You know, but unfortunately, man, like when we don't, and I want to be clear and put this in context, like if a family member's on drugs, the sad reality, there's not much you could do about it till they want to get off drugs. 'Cause I know people are going to say, well, if a person's on drugs, you know, they don't want to. We're not talking about that. We're talking about other behaviors that are being done. They have to be acknowledged, and you have to let people know, say this can't work. Not saying you speaking is going to deter them from the behavior or stop them from doing the behavior. But someone has to say, because a lot of people, the environment they grew up in, I learned this with the teaching, like no one has told them that this is wrong. And depending on what environment you're in, a lot of the behaviors are praised. You know, the fighting. It was just like, people are so cool. The person who fought and had this uncontrollable temper was the coolest person.
Yeah.
And no one sat them down and told them, this can't work. This don't work outside of this little environment that you're in. No one's accepting of this type of behavior. No one's accepting of temper tantrums and outbursts. But in that environment, it's supported and praised.
And I lie. Because two things two ways in because people might hear about this enablement and them think about it from one scope, right?
Yeah.
Which is co-signing what a person is doing. But enablement is not just co-signing the behavioral patterns of a person. This is the silence, because the silence thing is something we need to talk about, you know. Because if you realize what's going around the world, nobody wants to say anything, because if I say anything, then I might get into trouble. No. You know, so it's even from a subjective and an objective perspective, at the same type of concept, it really applies to the whole thing. So I really want people to know too. And I think one thing where people have to learn is that in this whole grand scheme of communication, sometimes, especially when you realize certain people sensitive to certain topic too, I feel one way out you have to try get through to them is to know how you are going to put the communication. And that's something when me struggle with too, you know, because sometimes if I realize whenever I try to show somebody something, knowing me I try to give them the truth and the right, but them not accept it because it might come off aggressive or it might come off too militant towards them. Them start for breaking a little shell. Me now, it start get annoying to me now, and me end up now don't want to give them the message because me I say I can't deal with that whole heightened sensitivity thing. So it really is really a thing where you have to learn and train yourself. But when we are talking about this whole love, if we are talking about love, I really feel like there is evolution we have to take place in love, and that's one of the evolution them. If you really want for better anybody where you communicate with, whether it be your family or it want to be a friend, you have to know how to heighten the communication and tweak the communication to get through to them if you really want them for better themselves too.
What I learned, Fire, with the sensitivity with conversations is that, one, specifically with loved ones, right? Unfortunately, I want to be clear. When we talking about enabling, we're not talking about you being in people business that you don't know and just talking to them. So we should have put that from the front, right?
True.
But we're talking about people that's affecting how the ship is going. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, when it comes to family, the message can't come from you all the time because they can't take it. Because there are a couple factors that go into it. One, they think you're retarded. Right? You know what I'm saying? And two, like, some people just don't respect your opinion. It has to come from someone who's a little lighter, right? Yeah. Or it has to come from someone who has a bunch of labels behind their name. It's the reality within our culture.
A professional.
Yeah, it has to come from a professional, because there's so many times where I've told somebody something, and whether they read it in a book or they see it from someone else who's more validated by society. And I personally think it's not an ego thing. I actually think I broke it down in a simple term. It's more palatable, and it's not palatable. They accept it more because it comes from a different space. Now, for those out there, you do have to be strategic in regards to relaying the message, because what's the term they say? You get something more with honey than something sugar with. You get more bees with honey or something. Something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I have to deal with it sweet sometime and gentle. Yeah.
So you yourself have to, because a lot of times when the message is being conveyed, the frustration is already there. Right? Yeah, so that's the reality. So we have to kind of go into the bag and be more strategic with the presentation. And sometimes it has to be a metaphor. Sometimes it has to be a story about someone else, because a lot of people remember when they're doing that thing, a lot of people, because it's an attack now, they feel attacked when you're acknowledging something that a lot of times they themselves know that they're doing wrong. Because that's where the defensiveness is. Because if it's not a vibe, then why is it getting you so excited? So, and you have to know your audience. You have to know the person you're speaking to. And, you have to know the time you're able to say it. You know, so I think people out there, men and women, you have to be very strategic when trying to acknowledge the elephant in the room. But the elephant in the room has to be acknowledged, because if it doesn't, it is so destructive. I've known many families that have been destroyed because, remember, when you have someone in your family that's just on a war path of destruction, everyone's affected. Inside, emotionally, economically. Especially when they're in and out of very crazy situations, because it's the family got to deal. None of these people out there are helping them. From a man getting in trouble, and you're busy talking about call my mother, yeah? I don't care how you have tattoo on your face, how a gangster he is. When he get in trouble, you're going to yell out, call, I want to talk to my mother. His friends not helping him.
That's the thing. You see, that's the thing too. And you see, this movie, because Hollywood, we soon really have to brought down this whole concept of Hollywood, and this whole utopic life as it relates to particular relationships. Because from two ends, I look on life two ways, right? From the teacher perspective and from the student perspective. As they mentioned the teacher perspective earlier when they say you have to know your audience. It's a rough thing, because me can openly admit, once me know the message when me I send correct and right, I don't really care how me want to give it to you, Yeah. But it's something where me can openly admit that me still have to learn, because I know say me really have to know my audience and know say, yo, this person I got to take this message to this particular in this particular way. I have to learn how to shape it. So as they say, from the teacher perspective, why? But from a student perspective now, is what I really want to address. Because I feel like the person who is doing the wrong, not even talk about the enabler now, right now, who is doing the wrong, why you really know this? If you are the wrong, are you conscious of the wrongs what you do? Don't come and tell people, say, oh, just accept me for who I am. Because you can't do wrong and say, just accept me for who I am. That's not going to make you a better person automatically. Or, oh, give me time to work on myself. Because you see, this whole time to work on self thing is a diversion, Most people divert and just make the time run off and say, oh, give me time for work. This is who I am. That's not who you are.
No,
that's who you became.
It's a cop-out.
Yeah.
No, it's a cop-out, all right. And when people say, when people say this vibe in regards to this is who I am, a human being is ever evolving, right?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously there's a lot of unbalance going on that's leading to you doing this destructive behavior. So this is not your true self. This is who you are at this moment, but this is not your true self, because everyone knows the higher self within you. You're just not tapped in, and it's a lot of work to get there. So that comment there makes no sense for a person to say, this is who I am. This is where you are now, but this is not who you are. You know, because there's a multiplicity of people inside of you. You just tapped into this particular state that got you in problems out here doing foolishness. You know, but you said something that a lot of people hear. A lot of people have heard this statement in regards to this is who I am and this and that, or I'm working on myself. And sometimes after that comment is stated, because remember, we have to understand when you are acknowledging the elephant in the room, we don't have any control in regards to the outcome of the behavior. Your duty is just to acknowledge and say, yo, fire, this can't work. You may want to reconsider this and that, boom, boom. And you have to let it go, because at that point, now the ego get important, because I really don't have control over what the next man do. If I see you doing foolishness, fire, and I call you up and say, fire, this can't work, and you continue to do it, I told you already, yeah? You get what I'm saying? And I think that's being more responsible than me not saying anything. I did tell you. I broke it down to you, explain why this can't work. You need to cool off. Now, if you continue to do that, you can't look in the mirror and say nobody ever told you, because I told you. What happens a lot of times, a lot of people can literally look in the mirror and say, no one ever told me this was wrong. When you're in this environment of enablers. I said all that to say is this, man. When you're talking to these people, yo, you really have to just be strategic. And also, too, man, you have to, how do you say this, man? I said it earlier in regards to know your audience, but you have to know the time to even tell them. And it's not even the fact that they'll hear you, because a lot of people are in a space where they can't hear. You know, it's like, and maybe the way I'm explaining it, they're probably saying, well, it sounds pointless what you're doing, but it's a responsibility that it needs to be done.
Yeah, noise. I just remember, you know, we talk about pollution, and noise pollution is one of the highest form of pollution. But what really is noise pollution? Noise pollution and where does noise pollution take place? We have to think about it. Noise pollution takes place within an environment. And whatever that person is doing, they capture that particular behavior from an environment. What is that environment? What are the blockers in that environment? Because that environment never just creates itself like that. So anytime you see a person at the wrongs, it have to come from a particular environment. Who are they around? What have they seen? What have they been exposed to? You see me I say? And at them thing they end up now create the wrongs them and make them kind of a spiral in the wrongs. And the more deeper them get, the more hard it is to come out. Because all the way been to that point where we do something and we think say, oh, this is the way we want to go. This is we're doing this thing out of what would I call it now? Naturality then, because this is just how we stay and it suits we at the moment in time. But we don't realize no, it's actually the opposite. So it's just a mental thing and based on the environment where we get exposed to. So that the nice now we're so deep. But when you know I try to help them as Dai mentioned, it might be pointless at that time too, or the help you can offer. It might not be the full scope of things, but at least you have to know say, we love the person. Yeah? And by the fact that I love the person, I have to at least make an effort for try give them a strength and show them as opposed to just make them have them, see them down, see them go deep into the abyss and when I say nothing at all.
And Far, there's one thing we should have touched on earlier, and we have to touch on it. I think the greatest exemplification of enablers is entertainers, athletes, celebrities, people with money, because their main purpose for enabling behavior is that they don't want to lose the access, the income. But on our level, on a social level, it's just that friendship. You know, the person may be their friend, or they may be benefiting from that person in a certain way, and they don't want to lose that benefit. So that's why I go back to you. Do you really love the person, or were you using love in the proper context? Because you're more concerned about losing something and not necessarily what's best for the person. You know, a lot of people question like, yo, why athletes this and that? Because the people around them don't want to lose the income that they get. All these big cases you hear about and all these behaviors is that people don't want to lose the income. They don't want to lose what they believe is the prestige of being associated with that people.
Capitalism.
Because, no one's more of a celebrity than the people around celebrities. Terrible to deal with. Yeah.
No, reality.
All right. A lot of artists, in my experience, right, a lot of artists have a bad name. The people have never met the artist in their life. They've been dealing with the people around the artist. Those are terrible people. A lot of times the artists, I already tell you the truth, yeah. But the people around them are terrible. And they mess up the brand of the artist. But I said that to give you an example of, I think the greatest example of enablers are celebrities. People around celebrities, because they allow any and everything to go on because they're not losing that income. And they're not losing the lifestyle that they get from being around that particular person.
But you mentioned that, Tori, if we want to bring the enabling on even a more grand scale, then you mentioned the celebrities, them, but we're gonna wrap up soon, but people them in a society, we are enabling the government for the wrong too. Because we gotta talk it like it is. We're enabling the government for the wrong too because we are feeding to the concept of, I am just doing my job. So many times we talk about this thing. I am just doing my job. So I don't care that this policy that the government just outlined is unethical. I won't raise my voice about this war going on here. I won't raise my voice about this bill that was just passed. I won't raise my voice against anything at all because I'm just doing my job. I'm sticking in my own lane. But then when those policies that were passed and bills that were passed start trickle down towards the society, we start complaining. Oh, this is affecting me. Then who did enable the behavior from get-go? That means that we never love the society where we want, the society we want in our head. So this utopic society we perceive in our head, we never love it in the first place because we enable all sorts of wrongs and enable the same bird with two wings for continuously rule the people them and not have the people them in a like a spiral like that. So even from an objective and a subjective standpoint, the enablement I get worse and worse.
And it sounds like on the court to finish off too, man. You got to add that corporate thing because how many people doing stuff on their job that don't sit with them well in their heart, but they enable that behavior because they don't want to lose that check. Yeah, you see this check thing, fire. You see this money thing. Man. Not for real, because I can't knock a person because I'm not asking somebody to be some great revolutionary and lose their livelihood, right? But the constraint and the control of behavior is basically the income. If you don't conduct and support this certain thing, you won't have income in this space.
Reality.
And that's the harsh reality in which we live. In this free world where freedom has we're such free people. You know?
Then a grand scheme of things, man, we have to just learn fire. So we can't enable the wrongs if we really are deal with love to the truest form still,